In this video, we'll walk through one more feature for part 1 of the Twitter client, and that is the ability to allow the user to refresh the tweets timeline by pulling down to refresh, also known as pull to refresh. So as a reminder, what we have so far is we're able to display a list of tweets in a recycler view, but there's no way for the user to refresh the content. The layout is simply a relative layout as a root element followed by a recycler view. So the way we'll do this is by using an inbuilt Android layout. So if you open up this guide, you'll come here, which is a guide about implementing pull to refresh. And this is a very common paradigm in Android apps. It's not built into list view or recycler view, but because it's so common, Android provides this layout called swipe refresh layout. And this is the recommended way in order to implement pull to refresh. Using swipe refresh layout gives you two benefits. One is that it automatically detects when a vertical swipe to refresh is happening. So it removes the question for you about how much or what velocity the user should be swiping at in order to trigger a pull to refresh. And secondly, swipe refresh layout gives you this display, this progress bar display. So this is a very natural and easy way for the user to be updated about something happening on the screen and some action is actually happening. And finally, swipe refresh layout will actually trigger a callback for you, so you know exactly when the pull to refresh is happening and you can take the corresponding action. So in order to implement it, the first thing we should do is add the library. So add this, copy and paste this line. And let's go into the build Gradle file, which is located in the app module. I'll add this at the bottom. Let's tap sync now. So now that we have the library included in our project, the implementation is fairly straightforward. We'll just follow the step-by-step guide here. The first thing we'll do is we'll wrap our recycler view inside of a swipe refresh layout. So let's open up the activity timeline and open up the text tab. And in here, you should be able to just auto-complete swipe refresh layout. Match parent is fine. And then put the ending tag on the other side of the recycler view. And let's make sure to give it an ID. I'll call it swipe container. And let's reference this from our timeline activity. Swipe refresh layout, swipe container. Great, okay, so coming back to step 2. Here we want to add some helper methods into our recycler view adapter class, so our tweets adapter, which will allow us to clear the items from the underlying data set or add items to it. So basically what we're going to do is, as soon as the user pulls down swipe to refresh, we're going to fire off the API call to fetch new data. When that new data comes back, we'll want to clear all the data in our recycler view, our adapter at that point, and then add all the data that we just got back. So let's open up the adapter. And we'll just add these convenience methods over here. So first will be public void clear. And then we want to look at the underlying data set and clear it. And then notify dataset changed. And then we want to have a method for add all. I'll just call this tweet list just to avoid any naming confusion. And then we want to add this to a member variable. And so let's just copy over the comments so it's a bit clearer what we're doing here. So let's add a list of items to our data set. And one thing to keep in mind is that you want to be modifying the reference to tweets that we have passed in through the constructor. So what you want to avoid doing is something like this, because technically that would clear out you're creating a new empty tweet, but it's a different reference, and so that'll actually screw up your recycler view. So you want to make sure that you're modifying the existing reference to tweets rather than making a new one. So the next step is that we would like to configure the swipe refresh layout and use it in our timeline activity. We already initialized it using find view by ID in timeline activity, but we want to hook up the swipe refresh layout to be able to get notified of when the user has actually done the on refresh gesture. The way we'll do that is by adding listener, set on refresh listener, and get notified in this callback method on refresh when the user has taken the action that we care about. So we can open up timeline activity and we can add the on refresh listener in this right after we defined it. So we'll say new on refresh listener. And here we actually know that the user is trying to do a pull to refresh. So let's actually just log that. And we'll say fetching new data. And actually this is very simple, because when the user is trying to get new data, we already are doing that, exactly that with populate home timeline. So we'll just call that method. And the only change we'll need to make is that right now we're doing tweets that add all. And so every time we call populate home timeline, we'll be adding tweets to the bottom of our data set. Instead, what we'd like to do is utilize the new methods that we had just added into our adapter. So first thing we want to do is actually clear out the data and then add in the new data that we get. So this is actually fairly straightforward to do. We can combine both of these lines into our helper method that we just created, which is add all. And then before we add all of these, we want to actually clear everything from the adapter. Great, so that's pretty much it. The only other thing we'll want to do is when we're done fetching the data, we want to call set refreshing false to signal that the refresh has finished and that we no longer need to show the loading indicator. So we'll just copy that over as well. And then finally, one thing we can do is we can actually configure the refreshing colors to be the ones specified here, so it's not just a solid black color. So if we go into timeline activity and we can set this up here. So now we'll be toggling in between these 4 different colors here. So if we refresh, if we run the app now, we don't expect any UI change. The only thing is that now, as you can see, as I swipe down, you can see a change. One thing you might want to do is run the app and then wait for a few minutes, because you need someone in your timeline to actually tweet so that when you do a refresh, you can notice a difference. The other thing you can do is we can open up Logcat, and we should hopefully, when we do the refresh, we should see fetching new data with this tag, and the tag is timeline activity. So let's try that now. Great, so we do see fetching new data, and then we get the on success, which we got last time from the populate home timeline method call. So as a refresher, all we've really done in this walkthrough is we added the library for swipe refresh layout, modified the activity timeline to enclose the recycler view in our swipe refresh layout, and then added a listener, set on refresh listener, on the swipe container to be notified when the user has actually done the gesture for pull down to refresh.